The main problem with the Little Nightmares series is that with every DLC and each new installment, it spawns more and more questions, yet provides absolutely no answers. The same happened with the newly released third game. After finishing it, I was left with the same feeling I get from any season of the TV series From. A desperate hope that this time, in Part 3, something would finally be explained, only to end up with yet another mountain of unanswered questions by the finale. But just before the final boss fight, something caught my eye. This room. A chair. A strange device meant to be placed on someone's head. And next to the chair, a small table with a jar of candy on it. Opposite the chair stands a work desk, and on the wall hangs a painting depicting... What is that? An astrolabe. And then it hit me like a lightning bolt. I'd seen, no, heard, all this before. But where? A sudden chill ran down my spine, a wave of goosebumps surged over my skin, and an unexpected flashback made me pause the game, trying to figure out what was so unsettling about this room. At first, nothing came to mind, so I quickly jotted down a note on my phone, figure out the cursed room. Then, after an intense battle against the gigantic serpent-like final boss, I finally sat down to investigate. Welcome to Save Room Archives. Today I'm going to tell you what makes this room so special, why it completely changes our understanding of the Little Nightmares universe. Who is that ominous man with glasses at the end, and why is he the only monster in the entire franchise about whom we don't just know something? We know everything. A few years ago, after the release of the second game, something quietly appeared on Bandai Namco's official channels without much fanfare. An audio drama called The Sounds of Nightmares. It's part of the official canon of the universe, and to make sense of everything, we need to focus not on the game itself, but on this audio drama. As you might guess, there are no visuals in an audio drama, so enjoy this journey through the Psychiatric Institute with me. The story takes place at the Counties Psychiatric Institute. What exactly Counties refers to, whether it's a real place in the UK, the US, Canada, or somewhere else, is unknown and not particularly important. What matters is that this institute exists outside the nightmare world where the events of the games unfold. In other words, it takes place in the real world. A psychiatrist named Otto, his last name unknown, was just one of many staff members at the institute. Long ago, he lost his older sister, Cece. One day, she simply disappeared. But before that, she had been suffering from severe sleep disorders. Otto's attention was drawn to one seemingly insignificant detail. In her dreams, Cece constantly saw a mysterious figure she called the Ferryman. He wore a long, dirty coat. His face, hidden beneath a hat, was indistinct. It seemed to shimmer, continuously shifting shape. The boy connected his sister's disappearance to her nightmares and to this very enigmatic ferryman. Otto went on to study psychiatry, yet the inexplicable vanishing of his sister, a mystery that conventional science could not unravel, kept pushing him beyond the boundaries of accepted knowledge. A major influence on both the future events at the Psychiatric Institute and Otto's own life came from his mentor, an unnamed professor. This was a man unconstrained by the limits of mainstream science, someone who studied the world in a way unlike his peers. Because of his unconventional views on the structure of the universe, he became a persona non grata within the scientific community. But the knowledge and theories he passed on to Otto not only helped him, but will also help us to uncover the secrets of the nightmare world. In one of the acts of the audio drama, Otto turns to his mentor's dusty old manuscripts. Ah, I found it. The paper that stained my professor's career, kept it all these years, hoping and dreading there was truth in these words. We know now that there is no center to the universe. Previously, we thought it was the sun. Before that, we thought it was Earth. Our species always insists that ours is the quintessence of experience, yet scientific observation proves our folly ad nauseum. If geocentrism took centuries to disprove, the question is not if, but when the same will happen to reality itself. That which we are equipped to perceive may not be the only world, let alone the predominant one. The professor believed that the world in which humans lived was only one layer of existence, that a thin boundary, intangible and invisible, yet very real, separated the universe known to humanity from other realms that existed somewhere beyond the horizon of reality. The key was to understand where that threshold lay, the point that, once crossed, would allow a person to enter these other worlds. The professor spent his entire life searching for this place but never succeeded, and that was because the threshold was not located in physical space. It was within the human mind, and the key to crossing it was through dreams. More precisely, nightmares. Otto earned his degree, began practicing psychiatry, but the mystery of Cece's disappearance continued to haunt him. He had to uncover the truth. The eccentric professor's theories paved the way for his search. One day, a girl named Ruth was admitted to the county's psychiatric institute, abbreviated as COPI. She suffered from an affliction she herself called water sickness. She hallucinated parasites, suffered from constant headaches, and was tormented by recurring nightmares. But these nightmares imprinted themselves in her mind with remarkable precision, and most importantly, within them, she kept encountering a mysterious figure she called the Candleman. The way Ruth described the Candleman was strikingly similar to the way Cece, Otto's missing sister, had once described the Ferryman. The Candleman stood before me on the rooftop. He wore a long, filthy jacket. His presence, it reminded me of when the tide goes out. And his face, it moved beneath his hat, like soup, bits and pieces rising and sinking. Wait, I can see a little better now. His eyes are long slits, skin rough, sagging like melting wax. He didn't speak, but somehow I knew. The Candleman wanted me to open myself to this place. Yes, he has for a while now, every night. Otto began studying Ruth's condition and soon realized he was on the right track. Ruth was an outcast, and the other children cruelly called her No One. She decided to change this nickname slightly and asked Otto to call her Noone. Let's go back to the very beginning of the video for a moment. Remember how I mentioned that strange room that caught my attention? Let's break it down step by step. During the therapy sessions, when Ruth was recounting her dreams, and during the dreams themselves, Otto would place a peculiar device with electrodes on her head. This device was used to monitor her brainwaves. Later on, either the same device or another one very similar to it was used to visualize her dreams in the advanced stages of the research. In other words, it literally displayed what Ruth was seeing while she slept. Now, take another look at that room. There it is, the exact same device. Each night before sleep, Otto gave Ruth candy. I believe these candies may not have been ordinary. They could have contained substances that stimulated specific areas of the brain crucial for the experiments. But even if they were just regular candies, let's take another look at the room. Yes, there it is, the jar of candy. During one of her early therapy sessions, Ruth's attention was drawn to a painting hanging above the desk in Otto's office. At first, she couldn't figure out what it depicted, 2 circles and stars. Then it hit her. It was a map. Otto explained that he had painted it himself, and that it represented an astrolabe, one of the oldest astronomical instruments used to determine the positions of celestial bodies. And once again, let's return to that same room. Look at the wall opposite the chair. Hanging above the desk is a painting with the same 2 circles and stars, the very same astrolabe. What does this mean? That the events of the audio drama take place in the same sinister asylum we explored in the game's final chapter? Yes and no, and this is where we descend another level deeper into the madness. At first, it seemed that Ruth's dreams, her uncanny ability to describe them in detail, and even the presence of the Candleman or the Ferryman could only be loosely connected to the disappearance of Otto's sister, Cece. But one night, something inexplicable happened, something that convinced Otto once and for all that Ruth was the key to solving the mystery. Noone vanished last night. As she slept, I was monitoring her ultradian sleep cycle. Involuntary spasms grew progressively worse. As I was about to wake Noone, her body evanesced for a split instant, then returned, calm as can be. Lacking sleep, I can't be sure I wasn't hallucinating, yet the image of her sheets deflating is imprinted upon my mind. This phenomenon began to repeat itself, though Ruth had no idea it was happening to her. She started disappearing for increasingly long periods of time, only to return as if nothing had happened. Eventually, Ruth realized that the places she visited, each time different, all existed within a single world. They were connected to each other like separate rooms within a vast building. One night, the girl found herself at a carnival, where she met another child, a boy named Rusty. Unlike Ruth, Rusty didn't arrive in this world through dreams. He lived there. He performed in the circus alongside other children. As they wandered through the fairgrounds, Rusty invited Ruth to join him on the Ferris wheel. When their cabin rose high above the carnival, the boy confessed that he hated performing. He and the other children were forced to do it. The one who made them entertain the crowds was a man dressed in a purple suit. Ruth was given a prime seat in the audience. But once she sat down, she noticed that the spectators around her were wrong. Rusty went backstage, and a crowd began to fill the tent. These people were grotesque. Their faces looked like poorly drawn sketches brought horrifyingly to life. One of them sat beside Ruth and started eating a lollipop. It gave off a terrible stench, and its center was soft and wet. Their bloated bodies overflowed the seats, squashing and melding into one another as they stuffed their mouths with rancid treats. Ruth nearly vomited. Sound familiar? This is an exact description of the carnival level, the penultimate stage of Little Nightmares 3. But then, something else happened. The performance began. A spotlight illuminated the stage. During the final act, Rusty stepped onto the tightrope. Suddenly, Ruth felt someone breathing beside her. She turned. In the seat that had been empty moments earlier, a man was now sitting. He noticed that Ruth wasn't clapping and turned toward her. He stared. Though his eye sockets were empty, she could feel his gaze fixed upon her. He was wearing a purple suit. Then she saw it. A puppet resting on his lap. But it wasn't made of wood or plastic. Its lumpy face was covered with hair, and a wide mouth had been crudely carved into it. Unlike the man, the puppet had eyes, and they were fixed on the spotlight shining on Rusty. The crowd erupted. Rusty had reached the middle of the rope, but the puppet's face twisted with hatred as if it demanded that all the applause be for it alone. Rusty and the other children had planned to escape during the climax of the show, but the puppet lunged toward the rope. Ruth never finished recounting this dream. She suffered a panic attack, and Otto was forced to end the session before she could reveal whether Rusty and the others managed to escape. But I have a feeling they didn't. After all, during the carnival level in the game, we encounter not only the eerie, eyeless man in the purple suit and his living marionette, but also a boy locked in a cage. I believe that boy is Rusty. The sessions continued, and Otto grew increasingly impatient. He knew he was getting closer to the truth and wanted to witness the dream world with his own eyes. To do this, he used the dream visualization device, intending to see the nightmare world for himself. But all he saw was a blinding light, like the scorching rays of the sun, emanating from a giant eye staring at him from the other side. I probably don't need to tell you that the eye is one of the most recurring symbols in Little Nightmares. It's everywhere. The screen exploded, and the experiment had to be aborted. But Otto doesn't give up. He wants to link his mind with Ruth's to experience a shared dream, and this time, he succeeds. Ruth falls asleep and enters a place she calls the halfway place, a liminal space between the real world and the nightmare realm. She's surrounded by a thin, black mist. Otto realizes this is the threshold, the very boundary between worlds, but it's not something that can be crossed freely. That's when the Candleman appears, the same figure Cece, Otto's missing sister, once saw. Otto is also inside the dream, somewhere near Ruth, but he can't reach her. He understands that the ferryman is about to take her away. Otto begs to be taken along, but the ferryman refuses. He tells Otto that he is too old, and that to cross into the nightmare world, Otto must pay in suffering, a debt not yet settled. The ferryman takes Ruth by the hand, and they disappear, as Otto screams and pleads to be taken too. He wakes up, but he's far from done. One sleepless night, another patient enters the psychiatrist's office, a boy named Ethan, who suffers from somnambulism or sleepwalking. Otto realizes that Ruth isn't the only one capable of opening the gateway to the nightmare world. In my opinion, here's what happened next. Otto began conducting bolder and harsher experiments on children with sleep disorders. The ferryman's words about a debt of suffering yet unpaid referred to a kind of tribute Otto would have to offer, by sending other children into the nightmare realm. Here's what I mean. Ruth entered the nightmare world every night, but she always returned. This happened because she had not completed the full transition between worlds. To remain there permanently, like Rusty, the boy forced to perform in the circus by the man in the purple suit, she would need to sever her connection to the real world entirely. To do that, she needed the ferryman. But before this final crossing, The children had to spend some time in the nightmare realm. By the way, this realm has a name, the Nowhere. That's what Ruth called it during one of the therapy sessions. Adults, however, don't seem to belong there, which makes sense. Throughout the games, we've never encountered a normal adult. Every adult figure has been a monster, but in rare cases it seems adults can cross into the Nowhere, if they pay a terrible price, delivering a certain number of children to the Ferryman. I believe Otto threw himself fully into these experiments, initiating children's the dream quest of unknown Kadath, hastening their full transition into the nightmare world. As a reward, he was finally granted passage. But there's a catch. The adult mind isn't suited to exist in such a horrific space. Once Otto entered the Nowhere, he was transformed into yet another monstrous entity, the bespectacled hypnotist with eyes on his palms. He also brought with him a fragment of the real world, which became distorted and manifested as the terrifying asylum level we explored in Little Nightmares 3, its basements and corridors stalked by Otto's monstrous form as he tried to crush the protagonists. As you wander through the dark rooms of the asylum, you can even encounter the ghosts of children, presumably those Otto sent across. This means the nightmare world isn't just a child's imaginary dream, as some once theorized. It's not a thinly veiled social allegory like Silent Hill F, preaching about kindness to children. It's not some post-apocalyptic scenario or the aftermath of Nazi experiments. It's a genuine plane of existence, and at the same time a distorted reflection of the real world in which the Little Nightmares universe exists. And the protagonist in the crow mask, Lo, might very well be one of the patients. Most likely, he's Ethan, the somnambulist boy. We repeatedly see flashbacks of a child waking up in a hospital room, hiding from someone who opens the door. That someone is almost certainly Otto, the psychiatrist, the final boss of Little Nightmares 3 before his crossing and transformation. I think that's where we'll wrap it up. I could keep blowing your mind for hours, but the old man needs to take his meds. I remind you that my channel is 3 weeks old and every like and sub is extremely important for channel's growth. Thanks for watching, and may all the creepy stuff pass you by.